last year, March 9th, was when the basically landslide occurs from those massive rainstorms. May 3rd, Newsom declared an emergency or a natural disaster area. Lauren had the idea of like, oh, we should keep that, we should try to get that soil. And then she met with Kristen at the site, and then that's when we started calling around and finding out how we could get the soil. Again, we also, in addition to us, because there was an insane amount of soil, we tried calling like Rec and Parks and different county people that we work with to be like, hey, there's this soil, it's really good, you should take some. And they were excited, but again, it was like, you need to take it in 2 to 3 weeks, and that's not how the process works with the government. So by May 23rd through May 29th, we received soil. We received 1,500 cubic yards. There's a small, a slightly smaller pile over at the State Historic Park at the east end, waiting to be developed. And then by June 2nd, the canyon opens. So when these happen, it has to happen really quickly, right? But again, we might not know where the next one's gonna be, but we know it's gonna keep happening. And by basically June through August, it just started popping off with all of the plants and everything, and then it was amazing. In September 14th, maybe some of you went, Lauren had a show at Honor Fraser Gallery called Concrete is Fluid, and it was a kind of an idea of all these things, of moving mountains, the Topanga landslide, of her really beautiful sculptures as well. But we featured a column with soil, a couple of columns with soil at that one, and started the discussions around the undevelopment toolkit. In December, we had Optimist Lunch, which 18 people actually present ideas on undevelopment. So it was really not just about unpaving, but also undeveloping our mind and kind of opening up the opportunities of what undevelopment means and what construction of this city means. And then January 7th, the wildfires began. So we had 24 days of wildfires with 57,000 acres that burned. And by April 1st, we started getting the logs in the soil. And so again, in that point from when Kristen called us this time and the time we accepted, we were also calling around and trying to figure out who could take the soil, where there was lay down yards, all of that kind of thing. And got close a couple times, but always ran into problems with liability or people weren't ready. And so here we are. So we took about 60 cubic yards of soil, which was the pile we were all standing on, and then we had 8 truckloads, massive truckloads of the logs on both sides. This discussion is really like to open it up and say, what can we do? So all ideas, all thoughts are welcome, and that's a big, broad opener.
If we wanted to move mountains systemically across the city and make them available for people whenever they need clean soil, what kind of policy changes need to happen, right? What does the coordination look like? Who does it, right? Do we need to teach people how to use the soil? What do we still need to learn about the soil? Like, are there other things that people can learn from soil banking, moving mountains, from remediation, all the work that we do here that could be that needs to be taught, but also how do we do that? Is this safe from a biological point of view for people? What communities might want to coalesce? Who would be good allies in this approach? Any particular strategies for outreaching, for coordination, for policy change? Who? And is this a suitable thing? And who's going to pay for it, right? All of these things are things that we're still in the process of developing, but through these tours, we want to showcase what we've been working on and bring you into the fold on how we can replicate this to scale. So if anyone has any thoughts, any questions, comments, or even suggestions on any of these things, it'd be really helpful for all of us to hear.
I feel like there's sort of the strategy of getting people who own property to contribute their land to these projects. And then there's also the kind of more guerrilla gardener sort of perspective on it. And I think that there's probably a lot of opportunity to just sort of appropriate or transform little sort of disparaged plots of land around the city to make it, to create these little cells of regeneration, if you will.
Yeah, love that. We call it post-legitimate.
Post-legitimate, yeah.
Up in Griffith Park, there's the free compost that I think that's the Department of Sanitation keeps, supplying. And within a week, it'll be down to the, gone. And you have to wait till maybe Monday again. So what if the third pile was the soil?
I wanted to follow up about the laydown yards.
Yeah.
And kind of ask about how, hypothetically, how could a laydown yard be owned by the public or just that initiative, like that process, what that looked like or what that could look like. And then another thing that may or may not be relevant, but the Old Growth Forest Network has a cool strategy where basically they have people go scout for old growth in the place. If they want to be involved, they have people go scout for old growth in their cities, all over the United States. And then if they find old growth, they essentially become an advocate for that old growth. And then there's a ceremony for it. And then there's practices to create legislation that protects it. And some of those practices involve private landowners, but more often it involves the city, and they're able to protect it. And I wonder if there's something that's equal to old growth in soil, like topsoil, if that could become, I don't know, just that's something that comes to mind, if there's like an equivalent of old growth, how it's revered in that way. And maybe it has to do with education and the way that we talk about soil needs to kind of change. But that's just a couple of thoughts and ideas. And and specifically just like for the coordination part of the question of how can a laydown yard be owned by the public, maybe that is also just something to see if there's other advocates that have ideas and places and parking lots that they've scouted or access or something.
So for the people from the Arts Coalition, for the River Arts thing, one of the things that I think we've all heard is like the
I'm so sorry, can you speak up? I think we can't
sorry,
hear
is
you.
this working?
That's not a mic. You have to.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, like a teaspoon of soil contains, like we've all heard this, right? The teaspoon of soil, a healthy living soil, has the same number of microbes as there are humans on the planet. And so illustrating that and making people aware that that is the difference between this beautiful soil that is coming off the mountains that is alive and sort of the dead soil that's under the asphalt that has been starved of water and life and organic matter. That's one of the things to think about.
Yeah.
Just a quick thought, something that came to mind. There seem to be kind of competing mindsets now between scarcity and abundance. And I think what you've really illustrated here is that something that has been considered waste is a resource. And it's just a different way of thinking about things. And we are constantly fighting for these scarce resources that we think that we're depleted when we really are surrounded by abundance. And it's just a change of mind, I think, to really approach these things differently. So thank you for showing that to us.
I'm really curious, this duality of dirt versus soil, and like you brought up, people pay a lot of money for soil, right? And yet don't realize the potential of all this. And I'm curious if there's a way to use some of this soil to grow the things that people want to grow, show its value, sell it at a subsidized cost to also make this more sustainable for yourselves, because I know it's really expensive to move these mountains, and recontextualize that we have the soil we need in our community rather than at worst going to Home Depot and spending a ton of money on soil from who knows where.
Yeah.
Well, I'm an educator. I work at a school called Da Vinci based in El Segundo, and currently our schools are trying to figure out ways to integrate more like gardening practices and programs. And so there's 2 organizations that I'm currently working with. One is called Arts Bridging the Gap. They also work with different charter schools as well as LAUSD to bring gardening programs. And so I think they would be really interested in having conversations on how to embed some of this. I know LAUSD is, I think, the largest owner, right, of land. Yes, absolutely. And there's another organization called Chicas Verdes that is also providing gardening programs across Los Angeles. With that being said, I think part of the strategy is hopefully if youth have access to these tours, I think it could be a very powerful way to share with them the things that are happening in the space, because I think it's so important for them to see how this is connected to the sciences, to history. I feel like there's just so many things that as educators we can think about as we I don't know if you have plans of opening up this space for more tours, but I think some of the teachers I work with would really love to just visit this space and give students the opportunity to see how repurposing soil is really just providing such a wealth of different things for our community. Yeah.
Thoughts were answered with what you guys were all saying, but every time we deal with these environmental things, I always feel like it's like a privileged person's issues. Like we're all teaching, preaching to the choir, so to speak. Like people who are struggling to put food on the table, who cares about soil and native plants and whatnot, and people that are being terrorized with the rays right now. They don't who cares about soil? But I always wonder how we could change that to make it not just a privileged person's issues, if it's everybody's issue, and maybe it's educating the young people, and what you guys are doing. Maybe art is the answer. I don't know, but I always wonder how we could do that. And then if we are collectively thinking that way, we could change the politicians who are always pressured by money, right? Basically they get paid by developers or whatever, and that's why we can't keep the environmental policies, and they bow down to the developers and we can't keep our land. So I just always wonder how we could do that, and maybe you guys answer the questions, and maybe it takes time and we're making difference. I don't know, but yeah. I always feel like that's always an issue.
Part of the work that I'm currently doing, and the reason why I'm here today, is I'm consultant with RMC, the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy. And I'm doing a lot of community engagement work along the lower LA River, specifically in the southeast LA cities that intersect with the lower river from Commerce all the way down to the Port of Long Beach. And I also recognize that in these conversations, oftentimes folks are saying is exactly what you spoke to, which is that we want long-term solutions, but we worry about the displacement of those solutions. And as we're seeing right now with the political movement, I'm understanding that it's great to see a turnout of hundreds of thousands of people at a protest in downtown. But the impact of having smaller protests in various cities is actually it's better, right? And so I'm seeing that now too, as we're talking about all of these fantastic ideas. I think having smaller efforts disperse more widely is potentially one of the solutions, because if we focus all of our attention on the upper river and folks are seeing what's happening here, it might deter them from wanting to bring that into their areas. But if we do this in sections and in smaller groups, it would be really beautiful and interesting to see the impact of that long term.
I think we're at a pivotal time where all these avenues are intersecting, and it's basically we got to develop this hybridized system of looking at this paradigm that's always existed and dominated the land, and in that created what I call a architecture of society. Right, where we're forced to live in this grid that disconnects us from the land and our rituals and our community and all these valuable aspects of life that we've, as indigenous peoples, have always embedded into our culture and into our daily life existence. And I'm very fortunate to have ties to that with my ancestral land in Jalisco, which is, the name itself is Jalisco, which means cal, land of lime. So we've always had acknowledgement of where we stand and how we work it, and how that actually is a catalyst for, projecting our lineage forward, rather than, like, as you see, we don't even appreciate the soil. And so, I'm sorry, I'm not a public speaker. I'm a hermit usually in a shop. So, all these points that you guys are touching base on is just like been floating in my head for probably 12 years, and just trying to figure out a way to attack this independently. Because as I said, I'm an independent contractor, and mostly I just deal with my own overhead and, all the battles that ensue in that world. So I get absorbed. But now I'm at a point where I'm, tired of fulfilling, the elitist dream, what I've been doing for close to 25 years now, just building beautiful houses for the rich. Now I want to build beautiful shelters and structures for where I come from, working class, poor people that toil the earth. And that's what I want to manifest. And if we can come together as a community, which I know we can, it's all about, like, everybody has touched base on all these facets of this new paradigm that basically everybody has to now employ, right? Like, everybody has to do grassroots organization and do the work, and basically, like I say, have skin in the game. So then we can actually have a stepping stone to then launch off of. And I've been trying to get in because I'm from El Sereno, I'm from South LA, I'm from this fucking area, and I'm not leaving. And I've been trying to network, and I've seen all this gentrification. I got pushed out of Frogtown. I'm almost getting pushed out of El Sereno Hillside, Rose Hill, etc., South Central, Watts. Like, it's affected me. It's fucking traumatic. And my grandpa was a bracero, so he came here in 1938. He fucking hated the vibes then. Luckily, he was smart enough to go back to Jalisco and create the beautiful layout that he was able to do through, guess what, working the soil, creating something from nothing. And I got to appreciate that early on, and I encapsulate that in myself, and then now I have children in my family, and so now I'm trying to, like, just reintegrate it in my everyday ritual of life. And I realize it's actually made difficult by the architecture of society, right? So it's actually like, it's a fucking battle, and I'm here for it. And I just wish we could be just more collaborative and receptive, and in that we can just project this forward and actually manifest it. On a side note, I build homes. I've been building homes, and what I'm trying to promote now is building homes with earth. And so the soil composition, all this biology and everything, I'm just geeking out on my own time and dime. So I value what you guys contribute, and I think it's hypercritical. So thank you all.
Thank you for your time. I don't know if you want to say anything else, anyone? But I think it's going to take all of us collectively to make this happen to scale, right? So I appreciate y'all.